I never expected a legacy to come on four wheels. When my mother handed me the keys to my late father's old 1967 Pontiac GTO that October morning, it felt like I was clutching a piece of his soul, a combustible mixture of polished chrome and gasoline-scented leather. The world outside our suburban driveway lay shrouded in early frost, and I could see my breath curl upward as I traced my fingers over the worn key fob. "Dad wanted you to have it," Mom said, her voice soft. She'd chosen that moment carefully, after breakfast, before the light drained from the autumn sky, and when our neighbors were likely still tucked behind closed curtains. Her face was pale, the same shade I saw in pictures of her wedding to my father 30 years ago. She wore his favorite watch. He'd given it to her on their 10th anniversary, and I could see her checking the time as if each tick drove home her heartbreak. "I thank you," I managed, my throat tight. Holding that key made it real. He was gone. The car was more than paint and pistons. It was the daydream of a little boy who idolized his dad's rumbling engine, the soundtrack to every drive-in movie night, the roar that followed our road trips to nowhere. Mom met my gaze across the driveway. "It needs work," she said, nodding at the GTO's scuffed bumper and tires half sunken in gravel. I had the mechanic look it over. He said, "It's solid. But, well, maybe you should take it by yourself first." Alone with the GTO, I felt something familiar ignite, a mixture of fear and eagerness. I slipped into the driver's seat. The vinyl was cracked and cold. I turned the key in the ignition, and the engine rumbled awake, a waking giant stretching and yawning. My father's spirit roared in those cylinders. My heart raced as the tachometer needle quivered. I backed out of the driveway, nestling the car into first gear. The world seemed different through the windshield. The autumn leaves, thatched in gold and scarlet, drifted across the road. I drove until the city melted behind me, until the only signs left were no outlet and the distant hum of telephone lines. I parked by a country road and killed the engine. Silence enveloped me. I stared at the steering wheel, the same one he'd gripped so many times. A gust of wind rattled the hood, and I traced my fingertips over the Cobra emblem. How many times had he adjusted the rearview mirror, checked the fuel gauge, tapped his fingers on that wheel? My chest ached. That night, I found myself typing an email to Ray's, the family mechanic of 3 generations. Subject: GTO restorations. Body: Ray. Thanks for inspecting the GTO today. I'd like to drop it off next week for a thorough service. Brakes, tune-up, anything else you recommend. I hovered over send. Then I added, "And thanks for looking after Dad's baby." I clicked send, and the words felt like a promise. 3 days later, the GTO sat in Ray's workshop under flickering fluorescent lights. My father's name still glinted in chrome on the trunk, J. Harrison. I watched through the glass-paneled office as Ray and his apprentice, Miguel, lifted the hood. Ray, a short man with perpetually greased-over spectacles, looked up at me and smiled. "Well, kiddo," he said, wiping his hands on a rag, "this old girl's got spirit." "She means a lot to me," I admitted. "I know. Your dad was here every few months. Loved hardly anything more than tinkering under the hood." Ray traced a finger along a spark plug. "From what I've seen, she needs a carburetor rebuild, new brake lines, and I'd swap out those old ignition wires. But she's solid." I nodded, feeling the tension ease. "I trust your expertise." Ray leaned close, lowering his voice. "Here's the thing. There's something else I noticed." He tapped the engine block. "This isn't about mechanical wear and tear. Someone's been in here before, after him." I frowned. "Someone else?" He nodded, eyes serious. "Someone who left something." He reached under a frayed rubber hose and extracted a thin, oil-stained envelope. "Found this tucked behind the intake manifold." My pulse hammered. "Can I see it?" Ray unfolded the envelope on the metal workbench. Inside was a single sheet of aged paper, its edges curled. The handwriting was loopy and unfamiliar. Ray wiped his fingers on his pants. "Looks like someone slipped it in after your dad's last tune-up." I glanced around. No one else in the shop. "What does it say?" Ray removed a pair of spectacles and squinted. "Here's the tricky part. It's not just words." He handed me the sheet. I saw a series of numbers and letters. XQ42RH 7:30 p.m. Northgate Bridge. Below, faint pencil smudges formed a crude map, a sketch of a bridge over a river, circled. Under that, a final line. "Meet me where the water kisses the steel." My breath caught. Whoever wrote this had known my father, and they'd hidden the message in the engine. That evening I sat at my kitchen table under the yellow glow of a single lamp, the envelope before me like a secret deliverance. My mom called earlier, checking in. "Ray said she's safe," she said, referring to the GTO. "Let me know when you pick her up." I told her I would, after I understood what the message meant. I dialed Miguel's cell. He answered on the first ring. "Hey Miguel, do you know anything about the note Ray found in Dad's car?" There was a pause. "I heard about it," Mr. Ray told me. "Did he say who might have put it there?" Miguel hesitated. "No, but there was an old guy who came in last month, asked to see the GTO personally. He didn't speak much, but he had a tattoo. An anchor and a compass rose on his forearm, and he paid in cash." My veins iced. Anchor and compass rose? Did he say who he was? Miguel swallowed. "He just said he was an old friend of your dad's. He said to leave the car alone and not to tell anyone." I thanked him, heart ticking like the engine itself. Who was this man? And why a secret meeting at Northgate Bridge? The next morning I dragged myself out of bed, crumpled the note in my pocket, and drove the GTO toward Northgate Bridge, a rusting steel structure arching over the river at the edge of town. The sky was gray, the road slick from a morning shower. My hands gripped the steering wheel as the mile markers ticked by. At 7:15 p.m., I planned to stand under the bridge where the streetlights cast pale pools of light on the walkway. I arrived in the afternoon to claim my spot, a section of railing overlooking the river's roiling current. I sat on the hood, chewing ice from a water bottle and watching freight trains rumble past on the bridge above, lifting the echoes. The time dripped by, 6 o'clock, 6:30, 7 o'clock, and my pulse thrummed in my ears. The wind off the river chilled me through my jacket. I thought of my father driving this car, the same highway, at night. Who was he meeting? A lover? A business associate? A long-lost friend? The possibilities spun faster than the water beneath us. At 7:28, headlights appeared on the road. A black SUV rolled to a stop, engine idling. The passenger side door opened. A man's silhouette stepped out, one hand bracing the door, the other gripping an umbrella. He wore a battered leather jacket and jeans, the kind of clothes a sailor or trucker might choose. I recognized the anchor and compass tattoo on his wrist as he pulled up his collar against the wind. My heart thudded. He's scanning left and right, face hidden beneath the umbrella's shadow. I stepped forward, drawing the note from my pocket. "Dad?" I called, voice shaking. He froze, turning slowly. His eyes, blue and weathered, met mine. "Andy." I took a tentative step forward. "Who are you?" He closed the space between us, umbrella clacking against the railing. "I'm someone who owed your father everything." His voice was husky, like gravel sliding. "I'm here to deliver on a promise." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small leather-bound book, waterproofed. This belonged to him. He held it out. "It's time you knew the rest of his story." My breath caught. What story?" He opened the book to a page underlined in red ink, the words sprawling in my father's unmistakable script. "To my son, there are secrets in this car, in my life, that I never dared reveal. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and you must finish what I started. Meet me under the old oak at Lake Willow tomorrow at dawn." My pulse raced. Lake Willow at dawn. He nodded, stepping back. He set a map in his mind, in the car. "You've found the first clue. But follow the road, and you'll find the truth, about his work, his regrets, and a debt he couldn't repay, except through you." Rain splattered the SUV's windshield as he climbed back in and drove away, leaving me leaning against the Pontiac's fender, the note trembling in my hand. I gazed at the river's churning gray, the night swallowing his taillights. I opened the notebook, traced my father's handwriting. The words felt alive, beckoning me deeper into a mystery that spanned decades and demanded I confront everything I thought I knew about him. I pocketed the book and the note, sliding into the driver's seat as the world darkened around me. The GTO's engine rumbled to life at the turn of the key. Tomorrow at dawn, I would drive to Lake Willow, follow the traces of his hidden journey, and discover the secret message he'd buried for me. Because my father hadn't just given me his car, he'd given me a mission. And I was determined to see it through, no matter where the road led. Dawn broke in pale lavender over Lake Willow. a sheet of glass reflecting the first threads of sunlight like molten silver. I arrived just as the mist lifted off the water, parking the GTO under the great old oak whose branches curled skyward like pleading hands. The leather-bound notebook lay on the passenger seat. I slid it into my jacket pocket, heart roiling with questions. I climbed the hill to the oak's gnarled roots, clutching my flashlight, even though the sky brightened in streaks of pink. The oak stood sentinel at the lake's edge, its trunk scarred by time and weather. I spotted a second envelope tucked into the crook of a low branch, identical to the one in the car, oil-stained, edges curled. My breath hitched as I retrieved it. Unfolding the weathered paper, I saw a sketch of a shoreline, the oak a boathouse to the east, and a jagged X near the waterline, written beneath in my father's handwriting. Life's currents change direction. Find the place where I turned, and truths will float to the surface. The boathouse, long abandoned, stood a few hundred feet to the east, its boards gray and rotting. I pocketed the note, retraced my steps, and headed toward the structure, my boots crunching over frost-hardened grass. The notebook pressed against my chest, a silent promise of revelations. The boathouse, the boards groaned as I pushed open the boathouse door. Inside, the air smelled of mildew and old cedar. A single window offered a rim of light, illuminating a small wooden table at the center and a rusted rowboat propped against the far wall. My father's notebook felt hot in my coat pocket. I approached the table, noticing a second notebook, identical to the one I carried, open to a page. With trembling fingers, I flipped it back to the first page. My father's familiar script, but in blue ink: "Andrew, if you read this, our secret is out. I never told you about the Willow Project, a clandestine research initiative I led under government contract. Its aim: harness kinetic energy from tidal flows for clean power. But the final prototype, the GX9 turbine, didn't just generate electricity. It created micro-resistant organisms in waterways. They labeled it accident, but I knew it was mutagenic. I destroyed the lab, the data, and saved thousands by stopping it. But a sample survived, hidden here." My breath locked. Micro-resistant organisms, mutagenic. I swallowed. The notebook continued. "The GX9 core sample is in the rowboat's hull, sealed in a blue canister under the port seat. We can't let it fall into the wrong hands: energy conglomerates, bioweapons labs. They'll kill to get it. Andrew, once you retrieve it, deliver it to the Deepwater Vault at Dock 21 in Harborview. No one else can know." A drop of sweat slid down my temple. My father had been a taciturn engineer by trade, but here he'd been a whistleblower, a destroyer of dangerous science. He'd sacrificed his career and his life to contain a threat. I edged toward the rowboat, brushing aside cobwebs. Under the port bench, I tugged on a rusted latch and revealed a small metal canister wrapped in heavy rubber seals, painted cobalt blue. My pulse thundered as I lifted it out, cradling it like a fragile relic. A shadow in the mist. As I emerged from the boathouse, the lake's surface was calm, a deceiving mirror of serenity. I tucked the canister carefully into a duffel bag. In the distance, footsteps crackled on frost-hardened ground. My heart leapt. "Andrew," I froze. A figure stepped from behind the oak, the mechanic Ray, his face lined with concern. "I followed you here," he said quietly. "You left in the car last night, and I knew something was up." I tightened my grip on the bag. "What are you doing here?" Ray rubbed the back of his neck. "I found the second envelope, knew it was your dad's handwriting." I remembered him talking about Willow years ago, how he was proud to work on something that could change the world. He hovered, conflicted. I wanted to help. I eyed him, weighing trust over caution. Finally, I nodded. He wanted me to deliver this canister to Dock 21 in Harborview, to keep it safe from those who'd exploit it. Ray's eyes widened. "He told you? Good. I'll drive you. No one will suspect the GTO with me. People know me around here, but you need a plan." I exhaled. "We head straight to the Deepwater Vault. No detours." Ray gave a firm nod. "Let's go." The chase, we sped toward Harborview in my father's GTO, the engine's roar echoing across the countryside. Ray drove. I clutched the duffel bag at my feet. As we neared the docks, the sun had climbed high, casting steel gray light over shipping containers and cranes. Dock 21's sign loomed ahead, an aging metal arch painted in chipped navy. Ray parked behind a delivery truck. We ducked out and hustled to the waterfront warehouse. The deep-water vault was concealed beneath a corrugated door marked "Authorized Personnel Only." Ray pulled out a coded keycard he'd purloined from the mechanic's office months ago when Dad once asked him to pick up parts, an askew scrap of loyalty. The door hissed open. Inside, a cylindrical room glowed under sodium lights. A heavy, circular vault door stood at the room's far end. Ray swiped the card on a reader, and the vault door creaked ajar. Inside lay a steel shelf with one empty slot and a second, and there in the center, an array of canisters labeled GX9 core sample. I slid ours into the slot, hearing the click. The mechanism sealed it in place. As we turned to leave, footsteps rang out in the hallway. I pressed back against the vault wall as two men in dark suits stormed in, one tall with a scar across his cheek, the other shorter, glasses glinting. They spotted us. Ray hissed, "Go," and pushed me toward a side corridor. I sprinted, bag at my side, toward the emergency exit. Gunfire cracked behind me. Bullets splintered the vault door. I didn't look back. Fear propelled me through the labyrinth of hallways, the GTO's engine roar echoing in my memory. I burst out into harsh sunlight, leaped into the passenger seat as Ray skidded the car around. "Go!" I screamed. Ray floored the accelerator. Tire smoke billowed. We roared out of the dockyard as the men's shouts faded behind us. The canister thudded in my lap, a reminder that destiny, buried in motherboard and mutagen, had just escaped its cage. Revelation and reckoning. We tore away from Dock 21, weaving through city streets. I dialed my mother's number on my cell, breath heaving. She answered groggily. "Mom, I have Dad's GTO and a canister he left. It's in danger. I'm in Harborview now, but I need to get rid of it somewhere safe, somewhere he chose." There was a pause, then her voice quavered. "He mentioned the old family estate on Crescent Island. The boathouse there was his hideaway. When he worked on Willow, he always said he'd guard it with his life." My blood ran cold. Crescent Island, a 3-aisle mansion surrounded by dense woods and accessible only by ferry, impenetrable. "I'll go there," I whispered. "Stay safe." She said something, but I'd already hung up. Ray glanced at me. "That's your next move." I nodded. "It's remote. No one will find it." Crescent Island under the sapphire dome of late afternoon, the GTO rumbled onto Crescent Island's dock. No tourists, just the ferryman tipping his hat. The island's drive twisted through pines, the road littered with needles. Up ahead, a grand, albeit decaying, estate perched on a cliff above the lake. The boathouse by the shore, the one I'd first found, gleamed white against green. I parked the Pontiac under a leaning oak, bag in hand. Ray stayed in the driver's seat, ready as lookout. I approached the boathouse, every footstep echoing with memory and dread. I had 2 canisters now, the original and the GX9 sample. I propped the bag against a wooden post, slid both canisters into the boathouse's hidden niche beneath the floorboards, my fingers finally able to place them gently. I covered the niche with weathered boards. I stood upright, back stiff. The notes and map had led me here, my father's final safeguard. I exhaled, feeling his presence in the rustle of the lake breeze. Behind me, footsteps. Ray emerged from the shadows of the Pontiac's fender, his expression stern. "No one will ever find this," I said softly. He nodded. "Your dad planned it perfectly." I closed the boathouse door, placed a single stone on top to camouflage it. Then I walked back to the car, stunned by the weight lifted from my shoulders and the path laid by my father's hand. We sped off Crescent Island as the sun dipped behind dark firs. The GTO's engine sang in my ears, a lullaby and a lament. I sat back and let the world blur across the windshield. That night, back at my mother's kitchen table, I poured a glass of whiskey. We sat in silence until she finally spoke. "He always wanted you to do the right thing," she said, voice thick. "He knew you'd follow the clues." I nodded. "He gave me more than a car. He gave me a story, one I needed to finish." She reached across the table, took my hand. "Your father was a hero." I squeezed her hand, tasting closure and new beginnings. The hidden messages, the midnight drives, the fugitives at the docks. It had been more than an adventure. It had been a reckoning. And as I slept that night, the Pontiac resting under the maple in my driveway, I dreamed of open roads, of my father's laughter echoing between gears. The GTO was no longer just a relic. It was my compass, pointing toward truth, legacy, and the open horizon ahead.